Who can you find that you would aspire to be like?
The right conversation can change everything. This is Mirror Talk, Soulful Conversations.
Today's guest is the CEO and founder of 636 Advisors and is also the author of the book titled Don't Be Dumb. He is a problem solver who debunks little known limiting beliefs today's entrepreneurs face on their journey to success. Welcome to the show, Robert Toll. How are you doing?
Doing well, Toby. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm just super excited to be speaking with you today. I'm looking forward to everything I'm going to learn from you in this conversation we're about to have. So yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
Yes. So I would just love us to start off with your story, what you experienced in 2018. Like in 2018, you went through this brain tumor removal surgery, and that led you to even share your work experiences, your observations, your adventures. So can you tell us about this surgery experience that you had and how it led you to share all of these things that you've gone through in the past?
Sure. So the short version, Toby, is I woke up on March 1st with the police officer at the foot of my bed because I'd had a seizure. I had had no symptoms beforehand and managed to pull myself together and walk down the stairs and go to the ambulance to go to the hospital. And within an hour, they said, we can't treat you here because you have a brain tumor, and put me in another ambulance and drove me about an hour away to another hospital. And they confirmed it, and it was removed several days later. There was attempts to, stabilize me and make sure the timing was right for the surgery.
Yeah.
But they removed it, and it was the size of a small apple in my frontal lobe.
Sometimes you do not need another episode. You need the right moment, the right voice, the right truth for where you are right now. Ask Mirror Talk is a space where you can bring real questions, honest feelings, and the life moments you are navigating. When you ask, you are not met with generic advice or surface-level answers. You are met with insights drawn from real conversations, lived wisdom, and powerful moments from the Mirror Talk podcast. Whether you are questioning, growing, searching, or feeling stuck, this tool helps guide you to reflections, sound bites, and specific episodes that speak directly to what you are experiencing. This is not about fixing you. It is about meeting you. Ask what is on your heart. Mirror Talk will reflect back what may help you see more clearly.
So I had no choice, but it was like, do you want to die or do you want to have it removed? And chose wanting to live, had it removed, and unbelievably positive results, Toby, in the fact that I can see better, hear better, my hand-eye coordination is better. What I thought was nerve damage in my face was really a result of the tumor that I didn't realize had been growing there for about 20 to 30 years. And the only thing I lost was I lost a sense of smell. But I had no rehabilitation, no chemotherapy, no radiation, nothing as a result of it, and was back actually on a plane working. I was working before then, but on a plane working in another place a month after the surgery. So it was just amazing results. Couldn't have asked for any better.
Yeah, that's good. But was that experience for you scary? Was it like, life threatening and you are at the verge of, oh my God, will I lose it? Will I lose my life?
It was more so in hindsight, Toby, than at the time. At the time, it was sort of, this is what we have to deal with, and just, these are the facts, and this is what we have to do. I think the scariest portion of it was more being afraid. I mean, I was unconscious during the worst parts of it, right?
Mhm.
I wasn't awake for it. But for
That's
my
true.
family, being awake and worrying for them was disturbing. And for me, probably the worst was right before they went into surgery. They made an attempt the day before to cut off the blood flow to the tumor.
Yeah.
So it was a minor, had to go unconscious to do it, but then they failed to cut off the blood flow. But I didn't find out till right before surgery. And I was like, okay, what was a good attempt? Right before the surgery, they said, would it be okay to shave your beard? And I'm like, okay.
Okay.
And I'm like, I'd rather not, but and then why? And they were like, Well, we lost you on the table yesterday and we had a hard time resuscitating you with the beard. And I'm like, right there with my wife and kids right there,
Yeah.
about to be rolled back into surgery. I'm like, yes, take the beard off, yes. But
Yes.
was a combination of less afraid but more angry at why wouldn't they have told me that the day before, and why tell me that in front of my wife and kids right before I'm
The
being
other
rolled back
surgery.
for a long surgery, which was several hours long. That I
Yeah.
could have been handled a touch better. I mean, on the whole, they did a fantastic job. But that one moment, it was like, okay, could have done a better job there.
And this experience that you went through back then, did it motivate you to want to share, your work experience with the world, to let people know, "Hey, these are my observations, these are my adventures in the world, in case anything happens."
It did, actually, because I came out so good from it,
Mm,
but I also came out almost, and I think this may have been because I'd adapted over 20 to 30 years, my brain was operating at a higher speed. And I'd written articles when I was an undergraduate in college that had been published, and I'd always sort of thought about the idea, but it was that prompt, as you say, Toby, to say, let's get these ideas out here and share those thoughts. And it's a mixture of business stories and experiences from childhood and my family stories all intermingled together. But to get that out there and share it with folks, certainly was the inspiration to stop talking about it and do something about it.
yeah, that's good. That's amazing. I'm so proud of you, Robert, for taking that opportunity to putting everything into a book. Your book titled "Don't Be Dumb" is an example of that. It's a product of that, right?
Yes,
Yes, because
absolutely.
in the book you have different stories and you share a lot of experiences like Alps in Switzerland, for example, and some
Hmm.
other stories that you shared in your book. So can you just tell us about the book and what inspired you to title it "Don't Be Dumb"?
Well, I mean, the book has different types of things and takes a different view of things. So it's like human resources tips that human resources might not recommend, or how to dive into the details without getting lost in them. And
Mhm.
take having faith that you have the ability in moving forward in your life and in your career. Um, the inspiration for the title was directly from my father because when I was a teenager, my
Yeah.
mom asked him to give me advice in the morning before going to school. And he looks up over his cup of coffee and says, "Yeah, don't be dumb," which did not sit well with mom, quite frankly,
Yeah.
Toby. But it was very good advice, and it's one of those I haven't always followed it. I certainly wish I'd followed it more, but it's good advice that's very, very simple to comprehend. Of if you have a choice between doing something that's dumb or not, try not to be dumb. Try not to make a dumb
Mm.
decision. Try not to do the dumb thing.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. So when we take this dumb into our, into the business world, for example, we have to make a lot of decisions and we make mistakes. We make dumb, we take dumb steps, for example. And I know you are the founder of 636 Advisors, and you have services that helps coach business owners and entrepreneurs out there. So from your experience so far, what are like some of the common business mistakes that people make out there, and how can we avoid them?
Uh, I think the often one is making assumptions and not a combination of making assumptions about things versus gathering facts.
Hmm.
So you're assuming something's happening the way you want it to, but you don't verify it and you don't gather the facts before making decisions. That's very common. The other one is being willing to dive into details. Often
Hmm.
folks, the further up they go in their career, they make, and it ties to the assumptions. They assume everything's working the way it should, and
Hmm.
then they don't go out and actually dive into the details because they're above that. But in
Hmm.
reality is you can and should get in the details no matter what level you are as a business person. Just make sure you don't get stuck in the details. And I visualize like a bungee cord, one of those cords that will stretch. Like
Yeah.
I've tied one around myself when I have to go into details. So I think of myself being, okay, you're there for 5 minutes or an hour or 2 hours, but then get yourself out of it before you get stuck in it. And it's a visualization that I have that I recommend for folks. And that helps small business owners, large business owners. You see it all the time.
Yes. But Would it be possible for you to explain into much details what it means um, to get tired in details? Like, what does it mean to be tired in details?
Well, I'll give you an example. I worked with
Yeah.
a state bus company that's in charge of the buses from location to location around the state. And one of the task was to improve the processes in the rooms where they're counting the money that comes off the buses. So people put money on the buses, they have to count the money, make the deposits, and it was to improve those processes around the state. Well, one of the things I quickly discovered, I said, well, how does this money get tracked on the buses? And they all answered, I don't know. And I'm like, well, what do you know? Well, it shows up here in the room and it's all locked and secured. And it comes into this thing from the outside with a safe, with a special key. I'm like, well, yeah, but how did it get from the bus on into the bus and then off the bus? And they're like, well, we don't know. And these are all the people that have been in charge of this for years did not do. And I said, well, it sounds like we need to go on the buses and understand that. And you would have thought it was like lightning striking them, that the idea had never occurred to them to go out because that wasn't their area. Their area was finance and counting the money, but their area wasn't the buses. And so myself and my colleague went out, got on the buses. We spent 10 minutes. It wasn't a lot of time on the buses, but we could then understand how the thing at the front of the bus could capture the money, how it went in, how it was secured, how it came out, how it would go into the outside of the rooms, and how it was still all secured so the money wasn't lost. And just validated that, got into a lot of detail in 10 minutes, but then we're able to say, okay, that part of the process is secure. Now we can focus on the other things. But none of the people had ever thought that it was their responsibility, had never thought to validate that.
So it's always important for us in business or in life generally to always validate information, validates things. Yeah, that's very important. That's very important. But once we've made the mistakes and we are already maybe like we are in the pit, for example, because we made some business mistakes, are there like some ways or some things we could do to bounce back, to recover from the losses that we've made due to our mistakes?
Well, there are, Toby. I mean, that's the first one that comes to mind for me, and I have an example of that in the book, of what I call the worst conference call in history, where it went horribly, horribly wrong with the way we set up. We used somebody else's system, and the whole call with hundreds of people just went really, really badly with interruptions from their system. People introducing, when it was beeping and introducing new attendees, and beeping as people were leaving. And we worked on winning this client for 4 years, and I sat there and we were a mad scramble on this call trying to get that sound turned off and couldn't do it because it wasn't our system. And I'm motioning to people on my team and they're trying to fix it and wouldn't work. And I sat there, but the reality is that was a huge mistake, and I have to own that. That using their system and not testing the system was a mistake. I sat there for about 30 seconds and thought, that's it, the client, we've lost them. We're not going to pay us. We're going to lose the client right here in the first week. It's over. And I realized that something I learned early in my life was you have to own it when you make a mistake. So first of all, you have to acknowledge I messed up. I could have blamed the other company. I could have blamed their system. Instead, I blamed myself and took responsibility for it. Acknowledged that I made a mistake. And then I quickly came up with a plan, which is the third step, is how can you recover from it? And every situation will be different, Toby. But in this case, it was, we can go with our own conference call system. We can schedule 2 more calls tomorrow, the next day. And I first and foremost own it and apologize. So I quickly went down the hall before we could get the phone calls, before we could get fired from our engagement,
Yeah.
and owned it, acknowledged it, and had a recovery plan in place that would work for this client. And it turned out to be, we were engaged for about a year and a half with them on a massive engagement in Europe that turned out
Awesome.
very, very well. But if I hadn't owned it, it would have been over.
Yes. So one thing I'm learning from what you just shared right now is also to validate, like always test the systems, and once you
Mm-hmm.
make a mistake, own it. Just own it, and try to find a way to recover from that mistake at that moment. Yes.
Come with a
But
plan. I mean, it's ideal, Toby, that you could plan ahead for like risk. and have a mitigation plan in place also. I would want to add that. So when you're thinking about what you're doing is what could go wrong, and then what would I do about it, which would help you from the situation. I did not do that. I've
Yeah.
learned to do that since. This was several years ago. I did not do that, so I had to scramble more than I would have liked to find a solution. If I'd planned ahead and said, what happens if the system fails? Now, here's the things we could do. I would have been much calmer and able to handle it even better.
Yes. And in that, using that instance for as an example, how would you have planned effectively for such an event or such a conference call to ensure that everything runs smoothly?
Well, I think testing first and foremost. So if it would have been put on the list of what happens if the system fails,
Mm,
then I would have then tested the system in advance
mhm.
and had people dial into it, discovered that these were notifications were on, and
Yeah.
been able to get them turned off or move to an alternate conference calling system.
Mm,
If I'd
okay.
just identified that that was a possible risk, it would have led naturally to, okay, we should test it to make sure this works properly.
Mm, yeah. So before we go into any business venture, whatever, we have to like look at all the alternatives, the options that we have before us, and test them out and see what works best for us, what tools work best for us. Yeah.
Well, and I like looking at the likelihood of something going wrong and the impact of if it does go wrong, how big would it be? So if something has a low likelihood and a low impact, you can deal with that. If something has a high likelihood of going wrong and it's a major impact if it does, then you better spend some time working on it in advance.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah, that's those are valid advice. Yeah. So sometimes we experience some of these things in our past as entrepreneurs or business owners, and we still don't have the ability to get rid of this trauma or this experience that we've had. So how would you advise us to let go of these mistakes, let go of the past, and focus on the future? Why is it important for us to focus on the present or the future, and let go of our past as entrepreneurs?
Yeah, and I think in some ways, Toby, it's easier for me than some other people because growing up, my dad was in the U.S. military and we moved all the time. So my parents did a very good job of always looking forward. You couldn't look back to what you used to do or where you used to live. It was always about here's the new adventure, here's something new happening. Keep your eyes face forward. And it's easier to say it than to do it. And that's even you referenced earlier the example in the Alps in Switzerland. I'd learned it enough by the time I was 7 or 8 years old that we're standing there looking at a fantastic view, and the person next to me that is an adult is going, well, it's all right, but it doesn't beat the green grass of Kentucky. Kentucky's
Yeah,
great. It's a fantastic place, but it's like be where you are now. Enjoy it now. You can go back to Kentucky. When you finish here in Switzerland, you can go back to Kentucky and enjoy that. But for right now, be where you are. And I think people have to think of it that way and I've learned it, you think about travel for business. I got good advice early in my career, which is do something fun locally when you travel, or otherwise it'll just be airports and conference rooms and hotels.
that's true.
And you'll just
Yeah.
be a blur and who cares where you went? All it'll be is just a blur of going to places that all look the same, as opposed to going someplace locally that you'll remember. Here's where I went when I went to Detroit. Here's what I did. I walked last weekend. I was in Manhattan in New York, and I took the time to walk around. I could have stayed in the hotel the whole time, except for when I was driving out of the parking garage, driving in. Instead, I took some time Saturday morning, walked around, bought some New York pastries to bring home to my wife. It was only an hour or two that I walked around before I got on the road, but it was well worth it because then I actually experienced things locally there that I hadn't, I worked in Manhattan a number of years ago, but I hadn't been back in probably 5 or 6 years. So it was a great experience to do that.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Oh, great. I mean, I love the fact that you mentioned of you being born in a military family or your parents being in the military. You were trained to look forward, like your mom is always looking forward to the next thing, the Alps in Switzerland, for example. But for we that are not born in the military family and don't have this training, how can we train ourselves to always look forward? always, look forward and always stay present and enjoy the present also.
Well, a good question in the looking forward, Toby, is to have that goal or aspiration of what are you looking for next. To take
Mm.
that time and say, write it down. Don't just think about it, write it down and say, I want this. And that could be different. It could be an experience. For someone, it could be stuff. It could be a new house. It could be a vacation. It could be, an event, going someplace, going to a concert, doing something like that. All those things with those goals and a vision, and both short term and long term, help you turn your eyes toward the future, not the past, and look into the future. Even if you're starting a business, well, what
Yeah.
happens once the business is successful? Why are you starting the business? What do you want to get out of it? And think of that, not just the act of starting the business. I think that helps a lot. I think the other part is, they say there's no such thing as multitasking. And I used to think I was really good at multitasking. And the truth is, I
Okay.
really wasn't. I was really good at moving from task to task rapidly, but you still lose focus. So, what I've gotten better at through the years is I'm going to block out time to be present here today. I'm working on a new book, for example. I've blocked time on my calendar from 6 o'clock in the morning till 9:30 every morning to work on that book. Headphones on, put some music on, and do nothing but not look at emails, not talk to anybody else. I'd look for a few minutes in my calendar, make sure it's clear, and then 100% focus on the task at hand. And that definitely helps you be present in the moment. And I move through things very, very rapidly with that 100% focus, as opposed to what I used to think was multitasking, which is really on and off all over the place and not really being as good as you could be.
That's true. I mean, I could totally relate to that. Sometimes when you switch between tasks rapidly, you might end up not doing the task effectively, or you might end up making a lot of errors or mistakes, and it becomes a mess on the way. And but when, like what you
Absolutely.
said, right? When you block the time and you say, okay, I'm going to write from 6 to 9:30 in the morning, you could always look forward to it. Like right now, I mean, if in the next day you can, or the night before, you can always say, yeah, tomorrow I'm going to write the next chapter of my book. That's so amazing.
Right. And it's
Yeah.
something that makes you look forward and be there. And it also helps you. I mean, for me, I like write emails to myself. I won't get up and focus if I'm writing from 6 to 9:30, but if I wake up at 2 in the morning with an idea for the book, I'll write an email to myself real quick. And so when I get up in the morning, it's there waiting for me. I don't
Yeah.
get up and start writing then because I
Mm-hmm.
need the sleep and I need to be able to be focused in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't want to lose the idea. But it helps that inspiration of I know this is going to be worked on in the morning. Let me get it written down so I don't forget it, and you move
Yeah.
forward.
That's good. That's very smart. That's very, very smart.
I'm beginning. I'm beginning to figure out one or two things in my
Yeah,
life.
like, yeah. Can you share them with us? What have you?
Well, I think the ramp up and ramp down time is far more challenging than we give it credit for. Is those interruptions, not staying focused, finding what works for you, and like for me, and it may be because mom was a music teacher. It may be because I love music. But if I put on the headphones and I put on YouTube or Spotify or something like that to something that I want to listen to, you you really get a lot out of it. You really do, and it helps me stay focused and achieve a lot. The other one is always looking for people that have continued to achieve, and I would ask your listeners and viewers to do the same. Is who can you find that you would aspire to be like? So I mean, I've recently, and it's somebody that I've been a fan of for many many years. But he's actually a two-time member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for two major bands
Wow.
named Greg Raleigh. So he was a member from Santana and from Journey, but he left the band in 1980, the last band that he was a member of, technically the last major band. But yet here he is this in the last few months being a member of a new band with his son and one of his son's friends. Just turned 75 years old and putting out new music for the world to hear.
That's good.
And it's like, that's inspiring. Now, whether it becomes a massive hit, who knows? But the fact that he's still out there doing it because he loves to do it and be able to inspire and still being involved that many years after his major acclaim and the major accomplishments in his musical career, that inspires me. And people should look for that in their lives of what inspires them.
Yes. Surround yourself with people that, uplift you passively or
Mm-hmm.
actively. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Motivates you and, yeah, inspires you. That's very important, or else we'll not be able to achieve our own goals in life also, because we could be left stranded or not motivated enough, or we don't have the courage to just carry out the task that we have to carry out in order to fulfill our purpose in life.
Well, and I would encourage people to believe they have the ability. You can step forward and you can have the recognition that says I'm not qualified or I don't have the knowledge or the education, but you can still step forward and go get that knowledge and education then. If that's what you want to do it.
Mm, mm,
Don't sit and think about it. It's not going to help you. You're not going to sit there by saying no to it, get that education. You're going to
mm,
get that by moving forward and say, I want to do this in my life, and these are the 4 things I need to do.
mm.
Start going after that first one on the list. Now, not tomorrow, now. Register for a course right now.
We shouldn't wait till we have all the money in the world to start what we want to do. We should just start right now.
Right.
Yeah, that's good.
You can at least take the first step, right?
You're right. You're totally right. I'd love to go back into your book. Your book has five sections that you talked about. I mean, I'm already so much blessed with all these words of wisdom that you're sharing with me already. Like I'm taking notes in my head. And it's so awesome. Life lessons and life advice that one should apply to each and everyone's life. And one of the things you talked about in your book in the 5 sections that you focused on is leading and not managing. And I think this is very, very important, for business owners, for entrepreneurs out there, or even for us in our families, in our relationships, that we are meant to lead and not manage. So can you explain this in more details to us?
Well, think about leadership as, we've already hit on a lot of this as far as moving forward, Toby. But if you think of managing to me is boring. Managing is just don't mess it up. Hold it steady, keep it the way it is,
Yeah.
steady as she goes. That's where we're at. Where leadership is having that vision and that dedication to say, we want to go over here. We want to launch to the next place. How do we take it to the next level? Because otherwise, all you can do is keep it steady or make it worse. And that's oftentimes what managers do. Leaders say, okay, we're here now, but we want to go here. And sometimes that may mean false starts. That may mean moving too rapidly and then finding out you're on the wrong course. But guess what? You adjust, you move, you say, okay, that we are going the wrong direction, let's change, and still you'll get there more rapidly and lead your organization or your family or whatever the case is to that goal
Yeah.
if you just get started and you have that vision to move forward and not just hold it steady.
So we need that vision. Actually, it's very
Mm-hmm.
important. Yes. Wow. Once we've gotten into into this workflow already, into having our business set up and having our vision for our business, are there like some things that we have to look out for to improve in our work process or in our day-to-day routines in order to become much more effective, much more successful, and even better bosses or better entrepreneurs or business owners?
Well, I think a couple things come to mind, Toby, is one, to the extent that you can standardize and put
Mm,
procedures around, and there's one way to do something in your operation of your business,
mm,
the better off it is for training people, for having you not have to do it, but have your employees able to do it. And that could be everything from generating invoices to producing a product or a service. If you can have it to where here's the manual, here's the virtual manual or whatever that says step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 with examples for them, the better off you are because you're going to produce a consistent product or service for your customers and it's going to help you grow.
yeah. Ah, that's
That
good.
and I'm probably a little bit influenced because I started off very much in a franchised type of mindset of working for a franchising company, but I think that's really important. The second one, and it's got elements of it in the book, is something that I've used called eliminate stupid. which is not a person. It stands for slow, tedious, unproductive, inefficient, and duplicative. So things in your business that just don't make sense, that you wouldn't put in place on purpose. And the way I've implemented the program successfully, and this ties in with the leadership comment in the conversation we were having earlier, is by engaging the whole team and giving them an award, even if it's a minor award, like a $5 Starbucks gift card, to turn in a stupid sighting report of something that doesn't make any sense and their idea for how they would solve it, and give them $5 for every one they turn in. And we made it an event. We made it fun. We posted them all on the wall of the ideas that were turned in. And then we went through as a management team and decided which ones we would attack first. And then we'd do a big red mark through them on the wall and celebrate them in employee meetings when they would go away, and promote and give the praise and another reward to the employee who identified it at that time. And it was just unbelievable, the things that came out once we implemented the program, from people that had been sitting literally 2 doors away from me. The first one we attacked was just so unbelievably stupid. I couldn't have imagined it was even going on. But she'd sat there for 2 years doing that job and never said a word. Never said a word to me, never said a word to her manager. She just thought somebody else knew better. But when she was asked, what do you think is stupid? What do you think makes no sense? What do you think is inefficient or ineffective? She came up with it absolutely. And it was literally the company was writing checks to themselves. Her job was to deposit these miscellaneous checks that came in the mail or via FedEx. And we'd acquired another company years before, and yet the company was still mailing checks to the old company that was still part of us, and mailing them all over the U.S., then having to FedEx them to one place, then FedEx them again, for her to open it, for her to do the coding in the accounting system, and then drive down to the bank and deposit those checks. And you talk about extra cost, time, waste of time. You even had accounting issues because technically, since they were part of us, they shouldn't be accounted for that way. They should have been just an intercompany transfer.
Yeah.
So it should not have been accounted for that way as an external expense. It was the wrong thing from an accounting perspective too. And yet it'd been going on for years and she'd never said a word. When we asked her what she thought, she told us. And that's the power of leaders talking to their teams. Don't tell them. You know, how would that have worked if I just told everyone on the team, stop doing things that are stupid? They'd look at you and they nod and they just keep doing what they're always doing.
Yeah.
You incent them and ask them their thoughts, good things happen.
That's the power of getting feedbacks. Power of, creating that environment where people are comfortable to also speak with you and share their opinions with you too. And
Exactly.
that we're able to grow, we're able to improve ourselves.
Absolutely true. And I think celebrating the success made a big difference too.
True. Yeah. Yeah. People, you give them a reward for, opening up. They don't feel frightened, but they feel celebrated actually.
Yeah, they
That's good.
actually are embraced and praised.
That's good. Yeah, that's one thing that comes with, gratitude too. I mean, being grateful for what you have in your life, but also being grateful for what people do also around you. Just being grateful to them. Yeah, that's it. That's the power of gratitude too.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. There's one thing that I would love to learn from you, and that's when it comes to negotiation. Like, in business, I know you are a very experienced businessman and entrepreneur. A lot of business transactions, we have to negotiate a lot. Like everything has to do with negotiation, and sometimes we fail in this, in this area. So can you like share some negotiation secrets with us that every business owner should know about?
Well, I think it may be a touch oversimplified, Toby, but having a distinguishing between what you want out of the negotiation versus what you need from the negotiation. So you may want, for example, something to be half priced from a supplier. What do you really need it to be for you to be successful in your business? I need it to be 10% less in cost, for example. I need it to be at this dollar price. I'd really like it to be free. I want it to be free, but I need it to be $10,000 less in cost. Knowing the difference between the two and thinking of that beforehand helps you able to make a more rapid decision that's based off of facts as opposed to the desire to have it for free. So I've used that, for example, when I had to buy a new car or a used car. I found myself in a case, I needed one, couldn't afford to pay much for one at that time, but I actually knew what my price tag was of what I wanted to pay, what I needed to pay. It couldn't be over this amount of money.
Yeah.
But I went into the car dealership, and I'm a big believer in injecting some sense of humor into it. And they go, "What are you looking for?" And I said, "I'm looking for a car that you just want to make go away from your dealership, that you're just willing to give it to me for free.
Mm.
But that way it'll just be off your lot. You can make room for another car. I'm looking for a car for free." And they laughed, and I laughed, and we had a good time about it. But I sent a message that said, "Don't want to pay too much for that car."
Yes.
And we were able to and also when we came to it, it was like, "Oh, well, I thought I've got this person that is trying to sell a car. How about this one over here?" We managed to find something that worked. And when it was less than what I wanted to pay, it was a done deal. There was no I didn't have to wait for weeks or spend a lot of time. We solved the problem in one day, which is also powerful because you knew what those levels were. So I'd
Yeah.
advise people to think about that. I also had a great example in a boss that I had many years ago that was applying for a new job with the company and went through all the interviews. And the boss, the CEO of the company, took him out for dinner and said, "We really want to offer you the job. I think you'd be a great fit." And he said, "Thank you." And he says, "And we want to make sure that we pay you what you're worth." And you know what my soon to be new boss said? He
What
said,
did you
"Oh,
say?
I can't afford to live on that. I need a whole lot more than I'm worth." And it broke the ice in the negotiation and laughed. And did he get everything he wanted out of the job? Absolutely not. But did he get more in a negotiated salary and benefits than he would have? Absolutely. He made it very clear that he wasn't going to settle for too low of amount of money. So those are a
Oh, that's
couple
good.
things you can think about.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's good. We should always know what we need and,
Hmm.
always take that into the negotiation with us too. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Distinguish
good.
between the two because we all want things, but what do you really need in this situation? And that lets you move more rapidly.
Oh, that's so nice. I mean, I can imagine the great services that you offer through six. Can you like tell us more about 636 advisors and
Sure.
what you do?
Well, we do work with everybody from small one person firms all the way up to multi billion dollar, multinational type of entities. And what we like to do is we offer things from business process improvement or business planning all the way up to transformation of how do you take your business to another level.
Mhm.
What can you do to change the way a sub portion of the business is operating? So it may be the example I gave before with the money rooms within finance for one organization, or had recent experience with the American Red Cross, where we worked to help them implement a piece of technology that would improve their procurement process, which is really vital today with supply chain issues. Anything they can do behind the scenes to make that more efficient gives them the ability to use donations and the money that they have to help people in need, which is the mission of the American Red Cross. Mission of the Red Cross as
Yes.
a whole, the International Red Cross. So
Yeah.
anything you can save them in efficiency, it doesn't mean they necessarily cut heads or reduce staff. It means they divert the money to the mission of the organization. And we found that to be very, very helpful to folks.
Oh, that's good. That's awesome. I mean, what's the best way people can, get across to you to access these services that you offer, maybe to even ask you more questions that we're not able to cover up in this conversation? What's the best way
Well,
to do that?
my website is advisors with an O.com. So they could reach out and look at things there as well as send an email that way from the website. I also have the website with links to purchase the book if people are interested, which is don'tbedumb.expert. So they could do that, or they could reach out to Amazon, go out to Amazon and order it there in either paperback or hardback copy for them to be able to read it.
That's good. I'm going to place the links in the show notes of this episode. So I encourage everyone to just click on the links or just copy the links and get across to Robert, and or maybe just order the book. On the website don'tbedumb.experts, you have the links to Barnes and Nobles, you have the links to Amazon and other platforms where we could buy the book also. So I'll encourage everyone to just visit the website, read the reviews that are also on the website, just to encourage yourself to order the book too. That's amazing. If there's an advice you would love to share with a business owner or entrepreneur out there, something that you wish you knew maybe 20 years ago that could have helped you today, what would that advice be?
What comes immediately to mind, Toby, is that identify what you're afraid of and think of that. And I have things that people are interested that I can give like a fear quiz that here's 10 or 15 questions to identify what are you afraid of in your business. And then once you've identified those fears, then it's how do you address those fears? And we'd love to help people do that. But oftentimes people have the fears but don't really identify it and call them out, nor do they take action to make them better and to address those fears. And
Yeah,
I wish I had known that earlier to do that.
that's awesome advice. Identify your fears and address them, work on them, improve on what could be causing those fears. Wow, that's awesome, Robert.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. This was amazing. It was awesome just sitting down with you here virtually to learn so much about your life journey and also about business entrepreneurship and all the wonderful life lessons that you shared with me on this episode. It was awesome. Thank you so much, Robert. I appreciate
Well,
it.
you're very welcome, Toby. I'm glad we could get together and happy to talk again when the time is right.
Yes, we'll do that for sure. Awesome.
If this conversation resonated with you, consider following or subscribing to Mirror Talk on your favorite podcast platform. You can also support the show by sharing this episode with someone who might need it and by leaving a 5-star rating. It helps these conversations reach more people who could benefit from them.
Thank you very much.